Yesterday, what we were discussing? Maybe students are joining. Hello, Sandra.
Yes, sir.
Yesterday, what we were discussing? Chirag,
Hot and cold extrusion, sir.
sorry, loudly, please.
Hot and cold extrusion.
नहीं उसके बाद we
After
started.
that, we
Yeah,
also did drawing.
Defect, sir. Defect.
we start we started with joining processes,
Yes, sir. Yes.
and we were discussing nut and bolt joint. And that time I told you what the common students they make mistake. That is, threading is not to be shown in both the plates. Threading has to be here only, and this has to be a free hole. And this is a combination nut and washer which is available now. Nowadays it is not separate. Washer is not separate and nut is not separate. Okay. So what is the advantage of this? Advantage of this nut and bolt joint is, or bolt is also called as the bolted joint, that you can dismantle it very easily. It is not non-destructive. It is not non-destructive. It is not non-destructive. It is not destructive. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Is it non-destructive or is it destructive? This type of bolted joint. Like suppose if it is a welded joint, and if I want to separate it, then what I will have to do? I will have to cut by grinder, isn't it? That is called the destructive. If it is a riveted joint, rivets, then again it is a destructive because I have to drill. So this is not a destructive, it is non-destructive. Means what? You can easily dismantle. Is it clear what I said?
Yes, sir.
Is it destructive or
Yes, sir.
non-destructive?
Non-destructive.
Non-destructive.
Non-destructive. Okay. So these are some examples. See how the plates are joined by nut and bolt. See, this is how you have to show a drawing. A typical nut and bolt assembly drawing, you have to show this is a proper drawing. So you have to show this thread. These two lines indicate the thread. Okay. Then thread is not throughout. Thread is ending from here to here. Okay. And there is this is a drilled hole. Okay. This is a drill hole in which you are doing tapping. So drill hole will always have a cone, and you cannot show tapping right till here because the tap also has a taper in the front. The tap also has a taper in the front. So you cannot get tapping right till here. So suppose if this is 20, then at least 2 to 3 millimeter you will have to leave. So you can show threading up to 17. So this is the thread on the bolt, and this is the thread on in the assembly, that is in the female part, and this is a free hole. Here it is free hole. All right, this is a free hole. Fine. Now here what is the mistake? This diameter, that is this head diameter, or this is not an Allen cap screw. So that means this is going to be, if this is M10, this will be around 11. So there is no mistake here. If it is Allen cap screw, then you have to show the counter bore here. Now here the head is coming out. Now the mistake here is that there is no washer shown here. Generally there is a washer. What is the purpose of Allen cap screw? Allen cap screw may we have a counter bore. Okay. So now here what is happening? The head is coming up. If you are using Allen cap screw, then head goes down. So you can now you cannot have one more plate here. You cannot have, because that plate will touch this bolt head. Are you understanding this? That plate will touch this bolt head, so you cannot have one more plate here. So suppose if you use an Allen cap screw or Allen bolt, then the head is sinking down into this plate. So you can have one more plate here. Suppose if you still want to go for hexagonal headed bolt and you want to assemble one more plate here, you want to keep one more plate here, then what you will have to do, you will have to cut a hollow so that the plate will accommodate this head. Plate will accommodate this head. Fabricated joint means basically it is welded joint. hmm? Fabrication matlab most of the times fabrication word is associated with cutting, bending, welding, brazing, soldering. Okay. But if you see the dictionary meaning, then fabrication means to manufacture, to make. बट इन कॉमन लैंग्वेज मेरे पास फैब्रिकेशन का काम का चलता है या मेरे पास मेरा फैब्रिकेशन का यूनिट है, इट मीन्स आई हैव फैसिलिटी, आई हैव वेल्डिंग मशीन्स, आई हैव ACDC वेल्डिंग मशीन, आई हैव आर्गन वेल्डिंग, आई हैव CO2 वेल्डिंग, I have cutting machine. Cutting machine is also called as a shearing machine. I have bending machine like that. So welded joint is a permanent joint. Welded joint है वो permanent joint रहते हैं. So that's why it is called the destructive testing. Because if I want now, this is one plate and a other plate. See, look at my cursor. This is one plate and this is another plate. These two plates are joined by welding. If I want to now separate this, then I have to use a grinder to chip off this weld. So that becomes a destructive testing. These are the riveted joints. So riveted joints में अभी how to assemble this? We have these two plates which are to be assembled. Now rivet looks like this initially. So it has a spherical head, a convex head, and then there is a plane diameter here that is called as the body. So this is your head, this is the body or shank, and the last portion is for the tail. So there are two dies. One is called the backup die, and another is called the forming die. So you have to rest these two plates on this backup die, and in the beginning you have to insert this rivet. You have to keep this rivet in the backup die and then keep these two plates. Now you use forming die. So forming function of the forming die is to give this shape, that is convex shape, to this rivet. So here on this top now the convex shape will be generated. That means these two plates are riveted. Okay, now if I want to remove these two plates, then I will have to use a drill machines, okay, to cut this rivet. Drill machine leke I will have to drill this rivet so that it can be dismantled. Okay. So that means this rivet is spoiled. Of course, in riveted joint, if you take a proper care, then this plate will not be damaged. Like suppose if this rivet is of say 10 mm, then if you are using a 8 mm drill, then these plates can be saved. But what happens if you are using 8 mm and this is 10 mm, still some material is adhered to these two plates. So these two plates may not separate. So the practice is to use a 12 mm dia drill. If this is 10 mm, the industrial practice is that you use a 12 mm so that this rivet totally get crushed and these two plates can be dismantled. This is an example of riveted joint. You might have seen on railway platforms, railway bridges. All the bridges usually they have these riveted joints, and it offers quite a good strain. And it can be riveted joint is fast also. It can be done in a faster way. Only what once it is riveted, you cannot dismantle it. Then another joining process is welding process. So welding may again there are different types of welding processes, like you have gas welding, arc welding. So in gas welding again you have oxyacetylene welding, oxyhydrogen welding, pressure gas welding. Then in arc welding, you have carbon arc and so many types of welding. Then resistance welding, spot welding. So some examination point of view, what you have to study is in gas welding, you have to study oxyacetylene welding. And in arc welding, you have to study carbon arc welding, submerged arc welding. In resistance welding, you have to study spot welding. But you are supposed to know the types of the welding. Means the question will be like state the different type of welding. So you should be able to state like in resistance welding, spot, flash, resistance butt welding, seam welding, etc. Similarly, in solid state welding, again you have to state, you have to give the names. In solid state welding, from examination point of view, nothing is important. But you should be aware of the different type of welding process. Then thermochemical welding, where the heat is used for melting, and whatever processes we discussed so far, either they are no, they need electrical source. But what happens sometimes you need to do the welding on the site where electrical supply may not be available, so there you have to use a generator, or you have to do without generator or without electricity. So that is your thermit welding, which is popular. जो रेलवे ट्रैक्स है, हाँ, रेलवे ट्रैक्स जो वेल्डिंग करते हैं ऑफलाइन और ऑन द साइड, that is done by thermit welding. Again, so here thermit welding is important. Radiant energy welding में nothing is important form. Again and again saying I am everything is important, but with respect to exam, this is not important. Means in the examination it will not be asked. So what is gas welding? See, welding में what is essential, what you should understand. Welding में क्या होता है, जो two metals है, whatever the metals. Earlier what happened, no, only it was welding was limited only to the two similar metals. But now, and that was also only for the steel, mild steel. But now you can do welding for any metals, any dissimilar metal, कौन सा भी, any metals as well as dissimilar metals also it is possible to do the welding. Like ms, you can do now cast iron welding, you can do stainless steel, you can do brass, bronze, you name it. You can do welding of cast iron to ms, or you can do welding of cast iron to stainless steel. You can do plastic welding, huh? Any plastic, pp bolo, hdpe bolo, pvc bolo, you can do the welding. सो बेसिक प्रिंसिपल क्या है गैस वेल्डिंग का, कि जो भी दो अपने को वेल्ड करना है तो दोनों का दोनों हैज टू मेल्ट, दोनों का दोनों हैज टू मेल्ट. और फिर उसमें हम लोग व्हाट वी डू, वी पुट अ फिलर मटेरियल एंड देन वी अलाउ टू सॉलिडिफाई. नाउ फिलर मटेरियल है that should have the same composition as parent material, and then on solidification now that becomes a single joint, that becomes a single joint. Whereas, so as in welding the parent material has to be melted and then it is fused with the filler material, whereas in brazing and soldering, the parent material or the base material is not welded, is not melted, is not melted. We are simply adding filler material in the parent material. It's something like जो हम लोग दो कागज है उसको चिपका रहे हैं. So what we are doing, what we are using a filler material, we are using glue as a filler material. Okay, so glue है वो क्या करता है, दोनों पेपर को चिपक जाता है. Okay, so same is the principle of soldering and bracing. Only soldering में क्या रहता है, the heat is less, and bracing में heat is little more. So bracing is little stronger than soldering. Why we go for gas welding? Because if there is no facility for electric welding, if there is no electric supply, then you can use गैस वेल्डिंग. गैस वेल्डिंग के लिए इलेक्ट्रिक सप्लाई का जरूरत नहीं रहता है. व्हाट वी नीड इज ओनली टू सिलेंडर्स, गैस सिलेंडर, हाँ, ऑक्सी एसिटिलीन सिलेंडर. सो विद द हेल्प ऑफ गैस we melt the base metal and the filler material. ठीक है. Filler material मतलब filler material means the material which we are going to put. The temperatures in the oxyacetylene are around 3500 degrees Celsius. Obviously, for the combustion of the fuel gases, you will use oxygen or air, because air में you have oxygen, correct? No. If problem क्या होता है, if you are using air, air में major constituent is nitrogen, so that nitrogen has a bad effect on welding. So that's why it is, if you want to have a good quality weld, then you need to use oxygen cylinders, or you have to do welding under oxygens if you want a good quality. Use of air also leads to reduced thermal efficiency, lower welding speeds, and poorer quality of the welds. So that's why the correct fuel gas is necessary. So as I told, now anything you just name it and we can weld it. In LNT, there is a separate division called the eutectic welding division. Now it is no more. Now it has been taken over by Snyder, and it has been shifted to Mape. Almost LNT ka most majority of the plants has been shifted. Mape and Hazira and Surat. So here there are hardly any activities. Also, the LNT, some divisions has been taken by Snyder also. Of course, they are using the same employees. I mean, employees, they are not terminated, but the management is from Snyder. The profit, majority of the profit will be earned by Snyder. So oxyacetylene gas welding can sufficiently do welding up to 6 mm thickness. और उसके ऊपर है, then you have to go for electric resistance welding. Because that electric current, it has capability of welding even thicker plates, 25 mm, 30 mm. So that's why if you see welding which is done in say Godrej Bolo or LNT, heavy welding, heavy engineering, so there the thickness of the plates is 25 mm, 40 mm. So they are specialists in welding. So there they go for this submerged arc welding or shielded arc welding. And wherever there is this problem of electricity, there you have no choice but to go for gas welding. But to go for gas welding, like many time air conditioner ka, so there you do gas brazing. If the temperature is less, then it is brazing. If the temperature is further less, then it is soldering. Yeah. So as the temperature becomes low and low and low, so you can fuse or you can join thinner and thinner and thinner and components or sheets. Like suppose if the sheets are very thin, if the components are very thin, so they cannot withstand the temperature of 700 or 800 degrees Celsius, isn't it? They will get melted. Like इलेक्ट्रॉनिक कंपोनेंट्स, पीसीबी बोर्ड, उसके ऊपर आप डायोड रख रहे हैं या ट्रांजिस्टर रख रहे हैं या आईसीज रख रहे हैं या कैपेसिटर रख रहे हैं, यू माइट हैव सीन द वायर्स, कितना छोटा वायर्स रहता है, कितना पतला वायर्स रहता है. So if you try to weld it up, everything will get melded. You will not see anything. So that's why in order to join in electronic industries, we go for soldering only. We go for soldering because the soldering may the temperatures are in the range of 150 to 200 degrees Celsius. So nothing happens to these components and those can be solder successfully. That is one point. Second thing is the solder joints are weak. अभी ये electronic components में क्या रहता है, they are not subjected to any stress. इसमें खाली कनेक्शन रहता है बस. It has to be connectivity is important and the circuit has to be completed. That's all. वही रहता है. Whereas in welded joints, अभी riveted joints, like platform बोलो, bridges बोलो, और या pressure vessels which are welded. So there they are subjected to the stresses, they are subjected to the loads. Okay, they are subjected, so that's why they has to be stronger and stronger. रेफ्रिजरेटर का बोलो, एयर कंडीशनर का डक्टिंग्स बोलो, देर इज नॉट मच लोड, सो यू कैन गो फॉर ऑक्सीएसिटिलीन वेल्डिंग और गैस वेल्डिंग. Now, only oxygen cylinders are very expensive and the cost of the welding increases. So that's why we use oxygen and acetylene together so that your cost can be reduced or cost can be minimized. You can think of other gases also like hydrogen, oxyhydrogen gas. This is mainly to reduce the cost. ऑक्सीजन इज कमर्शियली मेड बाय लिक्विफाइंग एयर, मतलब एयर को हम लोग लिक्विफाई, एयर के अंदर ऑक्सीजन रहता है ना, हाउ टू मेक ऑक्सीजन, हाउ टू प्रोड्यूस ऑक्सीजन. So we liquefy the air, okay, and major constituents in air is oxygen and nitrogen. 70% I think is the nitrogen. Okay, so you need to separate that so that you can get oxygen, and then it is stored in cylinders at a pressure of 14 megapascals. अभी ऑक्सीजन सिलेंडर का बहुत प्रॉब्लम था. तो people's many people they installed oxygen plants itself, oxygen, and there is nothing great in producing oxygen. Uh, only what there is, the critical component is absorbent. So there are two passes or three passes of the absorbent जिसमें कि एयर का जो नाइट्रोजन है वो एब्सॉर्ब होता है और ऑक्सीजन को आगे छोड़ता है. दैट्स ऑल, हो गया. दिस इज द प्रिंसिपल ऑफ एनी ऑक्सीजन जनरेटर प्लांट. ऑक्सीजन को अलाउ करने का और बाकी का जो भी है उसको एब्सॉर्ब करने का. सो ओनली क्रिटिकलिटी इज योर एब्सॉर्बेंट मटेरियल. Acetylene is obtained now when you are using oxyacetylene, you know, gas welding. Gas welding में क्या रहता है? There is one oxygen cylinder and another is acetylene cylinder. Okay. So here acetylene का कौन सा ये है? What is the chemical symbol for the acetylene? Hello. हेलो. एसिटिलीन का केमिकल सिंबल क्या है?
Ethyl triple bond.
हाँ, करेक्ट. एंड हाउ इट इज रिप्रेजेंटेड? लाइक वाटर के लिए क्या है? H2O. So
CH.
similarly, for
C2H2.
C2H2, yes, that is for the acetylene, C2H2. So here we are combining calcium carbide into water in order to get, this is calcium hydroxide CaOH2 plus C2H2 in order to get the acetylene gas. This calcium hydroxide is called as the select lime, and this is CaC2 is nothing but calcium carbonate. This is the equipment for gas welding. थोड़ा कम करना पड़ेगा. This is called the welding torch, gas welding torch. So top view is its photograph. How does it look? और उसके below इसके अंदर का construction दिखा है. The construction. Then you can see the tape, mixer, and walls. Just have a look on this. I'll just come in a minute. तो आप पानी पे क्या था? Yeah. So you have a torch, photograph of the torch at the top, and then its internal can be seen. So this is a threaded portion, and this is again a threaded portion here. This is a threaded portion here. So that means this is one piece, this is another piece, red color and blue color ka another pieces. Okay. So you have two cylinders, one cylinder oxygen and another cylinder acetylene. Generally जो छोटा रहता है वो ऑक्सीजन रहता है और जो बड़ा सिलेंडर रहता है वो एसिटिलीन. सो दिस इज हाउ यू कैन आइडेंटिफाई. यू माइट हैव नोटिस दोनों सिलेंडर सेम साइज का नहीं रहता है, एक छोटा रहता है एक बड़ा रहता है. And there is a passage for oxygen. I mean, the pipe will come from the oxygen cylinder, and one more pipe will come from the acetylene cylinder, and then both the gases will mix here. This is what is called as the mixing chamber. And then finally यहाँ पे you have to ignite. So you have a lighter. So moment it comes, oxygen will help in igniting. So you have a so it will get lighted here. Then these are now again color coded. That is red is for the oxygen and sorry, red is for the acetylene and blue is for the oxygen. So you can control the volume of the oxygen as well as acetylene from these norms. So this was the cross-sectional view. This is how you can see. So these are the regulators. These are the hose pipes, and you have a pressure gauge here. So by controlling the volume of oxygen and acetylene, uh, you can control the flame. So basically there are three types of flames. One is neutral flame, oxidizing flame, and acetylene flame. Suppose if I if I let more amount of oxygen, then I will get oxidizing flame. If I let more amount of acetylene, then I will get carburizing flame. And if the proportion of oxygen and acetylene, if it is same, then it will be a neutral flame. It will be a neutral flame. So how to identify this oxidizing flame? So this is the inner core which is pointed, and this is the outer envelope which is small and narrow. Then how to identify a carburizing flame? Carburizing flame will be yellowish. Oxidizing flame will be bluish. So you get a three zones here. One is luminous, bright luminous inner cone. Then this is the envelope. Now there are the uses of these flames, like neutral flame. Generally, most of the weldings we use neutral flame. Most of the weldings, and then for the oxidizing, when we use oxidizing flame, we use oxidizing flame for the brass, bronze, copper, zinc, and tin alloys. And reducing flames is used for low carbon alloys, alloy steels, and monel. Monel is again a alloy steels, a type of a alloy steel. Monel bolo. Huh? Hard carbon, hard chromium, chromium steel. These are the type of the alloy steels. Alloy steel matlab, see, any ferrous metal will have iron. Any ferrous metal will have iron. Okay. And then depending upon other elements like chromium, nickel, cobalt, manganese, hmm, we call it as a chromium steel, high speed steel, molybdenum steels, tungsten carbide steel, like that. Now this is what how you are doing a gas welding. So this is a torch and this is a filler material. So the material of the filler material should be same as this. इसको बोलते हैं हम लोग पेरेंट मटेरियल और दिस इज कॉल्ड द बेस मेटल. इसको हम लोग बेस मेटल बोलते हैं. सो What happens now? You will ask me, suppose if I want to weld two dissimilar metal, then the filler material should have properties. It should be trade off. The properties of the filler material should be trade off between these two dissimilar. Like suppose if this is MS and this is SS, so the filler material should have the properties of both, equally both. So the L&T eutectic division, while going to the Powai, that JVLR road, if you are coming from SIPS and going to the Powai, then you, on the left hand side you can see eutectic division of L&T. So that is only meant for welding, brazing, soldering. Hmm. Welding, brazing, soldering. And they have developed such a beautiful rod, silver, silver rods for soldering. इनका कॉस्ट इज अराउंड 10,000, 20,000, 25,000 रुपीज पर किलो. 1 किलो सोल्डरिंग का फिलर मटेरियल या सोल्डरिंग वायर या ब्रेजिंग रॉड, these are all special rods, will cost around 25,000 rupees per kg. Whereas our normal जो हम लोग आर्क वेल्डिंग के लिए रॉड यूज करते हैं, they are all I mean economical, they are not expensive, but still they are costly. So that's why we have to use the entire welding rod. See how the efficiency or how the productivity of the welder is measured. As a production manager, you will ask him, आज कितना वेल्डिंग रॉड बर्न किया, मीन्स हाउ मेनी वेल्डिंग रॉड यू कंज्यूम्ड. सो फ्रॉम दैट यू कैन आइडेंटिफाई द प्रोडक्टिविटी. सो वो बोलेगा साहब मैंने आज 50 रॉड जलाया, मीन्स टुडे आई कंज्यूम 50 welding rod. Then you will ask, show me. As a production manager, you have to see, because of this productivity, वो वेल्डर बहुत शाना रहता है, उसको मालूम है अभी मेरे को बोलना है कितना रॉड कंज्यूम किया. तो नॉर्मली उनका कैसा रहता है, दे यूज द रॉड हाफ वे ओनली, 50%, और 50% दे थ्रो इट और दे कैरी अवे एंड दे सेल इट. 50%. जनरली द लेंथ ऑफ द वेल्डिंग रॉड इज 300 mm और आगे 2 इंच का होल्डिंग पोर्शन रहता है टू होल्ड इट इन द इलेक्ट्रोड. सो दैट कैन नॉट बी कंज्यूम, जो इलेक्ट्रोड में यूज होता है. तो यू हैव टू यूज अंटिल दैट, टिल द होल्डिंग पोर्शन. लेकिन जस्ट मैंने 50 रॉड यूज़ किया, 60 रॉड यूज़ किया, इसके लिए वेल्डर्स क्या करते हैं, आधा ही रॉड यूज़ करते हैं, आधा फेंक देते हैं और दे कैरी एंड दे सेल इट. ऐसा भी होता है. सो यू हैव टू उनको बोलने का, शो मी द बट्स. बट्स मतलब द पोर्शन विच इज यूज्ड, द पोर्शन विच इज हेल्ड इन द होल्डर. So he has to show that 50 rods use the 50 butts, then it is proper. Yes, sir. So these are the tools and tricks you should know, because if they are clever, you should be also cleverer than them. So gas welding is cheap, very cheap. Maintenance नहीं रहता है ज़्यादा. Most advantage is it is portable, and can be used in on-site welding, or on-site work. Another biggest advantage of gas welding is that you can use it for cutting also. अगर आपको कट करना है, तो नॉर्मली फॉर द कटिंग वी यूज ग्राइंडर और वी यूज हैक्सॉ. लेकिन गैस जो है, इट कैन डू कटिंग. मतलब देखो, तोड़ने के लिए भी काम आता है और जोड़ने के लिए भी काम आता है. अंडरस्टैंड, इट ऑल डिपेंड्स अपॉन हाउ यू डू. अगर आपने ज़्यादा हीट यूज़ किया, मोर हीट, एंड इफ यू डोंट यूज फिलर मटेरियल, तो यू आर डूइंग कटिंग. मतलब क्या, आप फिलर मटेरियल यूज नहीं कर रहे हो एंड आप ज़्यादा फ्लो छोड़ रहे हो ऑक्सीजन का एंड एसिटिलीन का, सो इट विल डू द कटिंग. आपने हीट कम कर दिया, एंड इफ यू आर यूजिंग अ फिलर मटेरियल एंड इफ यू आर गोइंग स्लो, then you can use it as a welding. So oxyacetylene cutting is more common for cutting. Like जो बड़ा बड़ा plates है, even plates up to 50 mm, even the plates up to 75 mm, or even plates up to 100 mm can be cut by oxyacetylene cutting. Oxyacetylene or gas. Okay, so now arc welding देखते. So this was about gas welding. So arc welding is a group of welding process that use an electric arc as a source of heat to melt the metal and to join the metals. So pressure or filler metal may or may not be required. अगर resistance welding है, spot welding जो ऑटोमोबाइल में यूज होता है, वहाँ पे हम लोग क्या करते हैं, हीट एंड प्रेशर, हीट देते हैं और प्रेशर देते हैं फॉर वेल्डिंग. ओके. मोस्ट ऑफ द केसेस जो नॉर्मल जो वेल्डिंग टाइप्स है वहाँ पे आपका प्रेशर जरूरत नहीं रहती है. हाँ, इट्स ओनली बाय हीटिंग एंड बाय allowing filler metal to flow, that's all. बट स्पॉट वेल्डिंग है या रेजिस्टेंस वेल्डिंग है, वहाँ पे प्रेशर इज रिक्वायर्ड. So these are the different type of process, out of which the shielded metal arc welding is more common. Shielded metal arc. So shielded metal arc में it is like this, shielded metal arc. So you have a base metal, then this is what is your weld metal, this is your electrode. These electrodes के अंदर कैसा रहता है, इट्स इज मेड अप ऑफ अ वायर और उसके ऊपर कोटिंग रहता है. प्लीज सी प्रॉपरली दिस डायग्राम. Shielded arc welding is also called as SMAW, shielded metal arc welding. It is also called the manual metal arc welding, stick welding, electric arc welding, and fusion welding. By default, majority of the welding processes are fusion only, because welding means fusion, but simply fusion welding, it means it is a metal arc welding or shielded metal arc welding. So you have a electrode in which there is a wire and which is coated. ये जो वायर रहता है, वायर का मटेरियल इट इज सेम एज दिस बेस मेटल. वायर मटेरियल इज सेम एज द बेस मेटल और द, and then these wires are melted. Okay, so this is what is your weld metal is. और वेल्ड मेटल के ऊपर क्या होता है, जो ऊपर का लेयर है, देर इज एनवायरमेंट, so there is oxygen here, so it gets oxidized. Okay, so that is what is called as the slag, that is what is called as the solidified slag. So बाद में हम लोग, this slag is dangerous. Okay, so what we do later on, स्लैग है वो हम लोग चीजल लेते हैं या चिपर लेते हैं और चिपर से हम लोग चिप आउट करते हैं. सो चिप, उससे क्या होता है, वो स्लैग निकल जाता है. सो व्हाई इट इज फॉर द शील्डेड आर्क, बिकॉज इट इज, this arc is shielded with the help of a gas. There is a gas which is surrounding, and that's why it is called as the shielded gas, shielded metal arc welding. Shielding मतलब protection. These are the temperatures involved. ये आपका बेस मेटल है, वेल्ड मेटल है. So this is the slag which protects by oxidation. Only top layer gets oxidized, which you can remove it later. Electrode coatings provide an excellent means of introducing alloying elements in the weld metal. मतलब now suppose ये जो कोटिंग है, दिस इज अ वायर, ये जो है वो वायर है, इसके ऊपर जो कोटिंग है, so that coatings are nothing but of alloying elements, so that alloying coating also gets melted, and this alloying element like nickel bolo, chromium bolo, that can be used for welding, so that the strength of the weld will be more. So this is by default is the most common welding process. It is widely used because of its versatility, portability. It is simple, inexpensive. It does not require any auxiliary gas shielding or granular flux. It can be done in any position, but there are skills required. Any position मतलब horizontally भी कर सकते हो, vertically भी also you can, and you can do it angular position also. You can do it in angular position also. But if you want to do like vertical, मतलब आपको अगर दीवार के ऊपर करना है या सीलिंग के ऊपर करना है वेल्डिंग, सीलिंग, and the person is down and he is looking up and doing the welding, so that is supposed to be skilled welding. Skilled welding. Horizontal welding, that is the person is up, huh? It is easy, anybody can do it. You also might, can do it, but ceiling में करना है where the welder is down, huh? Because that molten metal, ferrous metal, is falling down. At the same time, he has to do the proper welding also. So that is dangerous, risky. So it requires high degree of welding skills. So these are the different advantages. The limitations or the disadvantages of SMAW is overall deposition rates, they are less. Overall deposition rates are less because the electrodes have a fixed length. Generally, they are 300 long. So, moment one electrode is consumed, you have to stop the welding and then insert another electrode and then continue the welding. I said. Then you have to continuously remove the slag by chipping process. Another limitation is that it cannot be used for non-ferrous materials. Non-ferrous material मतलब जिसमें कि iron नहीं है. There is no iron like aluminium. It's a non-ferrous material. Copper. It's a non-ferrous material. There is no iron inside. Bronze. Brass. Bronze is copper and tin. Brass is copper zinc. 70-30, 60-40. So aluminum, magnesium, copper, these are non-ferrous. So shielded metal arc welding process cannot be used for some of the non-ferrous metals. That was a limitation earlier, but now this is not a limitation. Let me tell you now, even copper, aluminum also can be welded. By using different techniques. For example, for aluminum or this copper welding, you have to use AC/DC welding machine. Because aluminum and copper will give good welding only on DC supply, not on AC supply. Again, the limitations are the process is slow. Electrode material is wasted a lot. I told some people they have habit of using only 50%. Some they use 70%. Nobody uses 100%. At the most 90% or 85%. Then if the slag is not removed properly, it remains in the bead, that is weld bead. And then because of the slag, the strength will be reduced. This is the principle which we have discussed. It uses heat of the electric arc, because you know what is the relation between heat and the current or arc and the current. H is equal to I square RT. More the current, more the heat. More the resistance, more the heat. More the time you allow the current, more the heat. Okay, so heat of the electric arc to melt consumable electrode. Hmm. Welding circuit includes power source, welding cables, electrode holder, work clamp, and a welding electrode. Then there are two cables. One cable connects the power source to the electrode holder, and other cable connects to the workpiece. And this is how your circuit is closed. So some sort of a skill is also required. That is, you have to hold the electrode and you have to maintain the proper gap between the workpiece and the electrode, because if the electrode touches, then that forms a shorting, and if there is a too much of gap, then welding will not happen properly. These are some photographs, like how to identify welds. Like this is your good weld. B, current is low. C, current is too high, पूरा जल गया. D, arc length too short. Arc length मतलब length of the arc. E, arc length is too long. F, जो travel speed है मतलब जो electrode का, it is too slow. Then G, travel speed is too high. Okay, so here we complete this, shielded metal arc welding. Again, welding is a very big topic. Hmm. As I told, no, this production process is a mix of 8 subjects. 8 subjects. This welding itself is a one subject. Welding processes. It used to be in production engineering, in in third year, in fifth semester. So it is so huge syllabus. So this is into which model? Any idea? Can anybody tell me? Joining processes. Okay, if you have any doubt, you please ask. So introduction to production processes and metal casting we have finished, and now we are discussing joining process. So joining process में देखो क्या क्या है. Applicability, advantages, limitations of adhesive bonding, mechanical fastening, welding, and allied processes. So they have said allied processes. So we will only focus on simple and useful and popular processes. Then hybrid joining processes. Then classification and working of various welding methods: gas, arc, chemical, solid state, radiant, etc. Then welding joints, welding position, welding defects, and their remedies. ठीक है. So then we have to go for the forming processes में some part we are already clear, that is extrusion हो गया है, rolling हो गया है. So once we complete with the joining, then we can go for the sheet metal, then machine tools, non-traditional. Oh, बहुत है. Okay, ठीक है. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much,
sir.
sir.
Thank you